In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Marianne's guests are leaders in their field, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in their own work. They teach others to develop, refocus, and grow. Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. And remember, make every moment count.
Welcome to Moments with Marianne. Today I'm here with a very special guest, William Buhlman, and he is just the expert and the go-to guy for out-of-body experience and afterlife training. So welcome to the show, William.
Hi, Marianne. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's definitely a pleasure to have you on the show. Now, I've known you for some time and been following your work, and you're really the pioneer of out-of-body experience.
Well, I did begin writing about my first book on OBEs and how to initiate them. It was published over 20 years ago. So I've been out there for quite a while teaching this subject.
Yeah, I know that you also, we'll kind of talk about this briefly because I'm sure people are going, gosh, as we get into this, they're going to want to know how they can learn more about it and your workshops. And so I know over at the Monroe Institute in Virginia that you have workshops that you do where people can be fully immersed in that whole experience.
Yes, I teach a 6-day workshop. It's quite extensive, called Out-of-Body Exploration Intensive, where we explore altered states of consciousness, exploration of consciousness, and out-of-body experiences in experientially in quite detail. And it's an exciting workshop. People have all kinds of really fascinating experiences, and that's what the workshop's about, teaching people how to have their own profound experiences. I keep the lectures to a minimum.
Mm-hmm. And then they'll have the parts where they go and do meditation and look to ground body. And so for our listeners who are new to this and new to what out-of-body is, could you explain that briefly?
Sure. Out-of-body experiences are essentially just a separation of consciousness from the body. It's a broad term. It really relates to all kinds of states of consciousness where you have essentially a profound state of being out of phase with your physical body, so you can connect with your inner essence and obtain all kinds of insights about yourself and your place in the universe. It's the opening, the door opener to all kinds of really life-changing experiences for people. And it's something that's been recorded throughout history, really, even biblical times. People talk about even St. John, St. Paul in Corinthians talks about whether in the body or out of the body. But it's about having your own profound experiences. And at the Monroe Institute, it's the perfect place in the world to experience this, because everyone's in their own check unit or meditation pod, so to speak. And it leads to profound experiences.
That is fabulous. Now, I know for me personally, when I read your book, Adventures Beyond the Body, it really put a lot of pieces together for me, because I had out-of-body experiences and not known what, some of the things that were happening, like the loud buzzing noise, or it would sound like a train, actually.
Yeah, it's commonly referred to as the vibrational state. It's a prelude to not only out-of-body experiences, but often deep meditation and trance states. And people it's common phenomena includes lightness or heaviness, hearing your name called, partial or temporary, let's just call it paralysis of the body, where you just can't move for a few moments. People experience it sometimes when they awaken. These are all preludes to an out-of-body experience, and they're all very safe, by the way. The most common one is just vibrations, energy surges running through your body. You may be asleep and suddenly you feel surges or shifts of energy moving through your body. These are all preludes to an out-of-body experience.
And in your book, and I know this is one of, for me, this is where it kind of all began, Adventures Beyond the Body, that really outlines how somebody could start their journey in having out-of-body experiences. It gives them a roadmap for that.
Yes, the whole purpose of my first book, Adventures Beyond the Body, was to teach people that this is a normal experience. We're spiritual beings. We're only temporarily visiting the physical world. So why should we be locked into a body for 80 years, 90 years, or whatever? That's a choice that we make based on the conditioning of our society and culture. But if you study the history of mystics throughout the ages, you notice that all these profound experiences have one thing in common, and that is they transcend the body. Whether it be mystics of the Bible or in Buddhism, Hinduism, pick any religion and you'll see the common element is that people are transcending or shifting their consciousness beyond the body, and that's what initiates these profound experiences that people are enjoying today.
And from what I understand, and your website is such a great resource. It's astralinfo.org, astralinfo.org, and it really gives a lot of resources on and answers a lot of questions in regards to, what's an out of body, what is, some different things of what does the environment look like, what will my experience kind of be like, and then also the benefits of doing out-of-body work.
Yes, I tried to, all my information that I provide is based on, there's no theory or conjecture. It's based on not only my 41 years of experience, but also I had 16,000 people have written to me sharing their experiences from 42 countries. So it's based on a wide variety of universal experiences that people are having. And many people today are well aware of near-death experiences, but actually out-of-body experiences are far more common. You don't have to die, in other words, to have your consciousness suddenly projected beyond your physical limits. It happens quite commonly, especially to children. Very few people are aware of this, but because they're open to these things. And of course, when they try to share their experiences, they sound a little bizarre, and parents just classify them often as a dream. But it's the idea that we can explore beyond our physical limits is only a logical conclusion. If it's like I said, if we're soul, if we're spiritual, and we're immortal, why not? Why aren't we able to connect with our true self? And that's really what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. And in your newer book, Adventures in the Afterlife, you talk about heaven, and I'm just going to kind of segue into this for a little bit here, but you talk about heaven being a state of consciousness. Can you expand on that?
Yes, I wrote Adventures in the Afterlife based on my experience when I thought I was dying from cancer. I had stage 4 cancer in 2011. And I had a lot of experiences while I was in recovery from that. And I realized that heaven is the multidimensional universe. 2,000 years ago and earlier, the ancient mystics just called it heaven because it was so beautiful. But what we actually enter at death, I and others have found, is that it's a multidimensional universe, and the earth that we know is just the epidermis layer. And the more knowledge that we have about these realities that we encounter when we die, the more, let's just say, the better we can make our afterlife journey, because there's choices to be made, even after death. There is no predestination, I have found. People determine not only their physical life journey, but they determine their afterlife journey. So the most knowledge that we have about this multidimensional continuum that we are entering, the more skilled we can be at navigating these thought-responsive realities that exist in the afterlife. And that's what I talk about extensively in my previous book, Adventures in the Afterlife. In other words, how to become an effective explorer of consciousness in the afterlife.
Well, and so let's say someone has, they're following your books, they've been able to figure out, and it's not very hard to do. I know that you say if someone follows the simple techniques that you use, they can have an out-of-body experience in about 30 days. So, and once they seem to really master that, what is really the benefit for doing out-of-body experiences? Is it really like the next evolution for humankind to venture beyond the body and then make different choices based on what it is that we discover there and what it is that we'd like to see happen?
I think the number one reason is self-knowledge. The great problem in the physical world is lack of self-knowledge. People don't know what they are, they don't know where they come from, and they don't know where they're going when they die. The vast majority of people, they have beliefs, but they have no personal knowledge. In other words, people go through their lives thinking they're a biological being, and we're not. We're consciousness. Soul is pure consciousness, and the afterlife is a thought-responsive continuum of subtle energies and realities. And self-knowledge opens the door to us being able to truly understand our purpose, and it opens up the doors to all realities that we will experience. It opens the door to our ability to navigate these unbelievably beautiful and thought-responsive realities that we will all enter at death. And the more we know, the more skillful we can become in our journey beyond the body. Because everybody's going. What people forget sometimes is that we're all exiting the body. There's no exception. So why not know about where you're headed? I always find it crazy that, everybody plans every moment of every day, darn it. They have every meal is generally pretty much planned. Yet, people live for 80, 90, 100 years, and they have no concept where they're going at death, which is the pivotal point that we need to know about. We need to know the destination. We need to know how we impact upon it. Knowledge is what we obtain from out-of-body experiences, personal knowledge, because beliefs do not prepare us for the journey of consciousness that we call death. Beliefs are, to be quite frank, they've become antiquated, and most of them are thousands of years old. We have the ability to become self-empowered and obtain the answers for ourselves, and that's what OBEs allow us to do.
What's the most, interesting thing that you've seen on the other side?
Oh my God, so many things.
I know it'd be tough to pick one, huh?
Well, there's so much. It's number one, I realized very quickly, and this may sound strange to some people, and that is that, of course, thoughts create reality and consensus realities. What the most shocking thing I've probably learned is that people limit themselves in very cloistered communities that are created by the collective thoughts of the inhabitants. And this limits them to that reality, just like people do on Earth. In other words, we as soul are not human. We can assume any shape or form needed to obtain the knowledge we need to advance ourselves spiritually. Humanoid is just one form that's used by soul to learn to evolve spiritually. And what I have found most shocking is that many people in the afterlife are limiting themselves, and they've put themselves in a box, so to speak. If you believe you are an Asian female American, and you die, you continue to be an Asian female. You follow me? You're still locked in that paradigm. And that is what's limiting the evolution of humanity, is this belief system we hold about ourselves. In other words, our self-identity limits us. And that's one of the things I've learned. We have to break free. The beginnings of breaking free and liberation is to break free from our own self-identity that's flawed and false. Because as consciousness, we are not biological. There's no air in the afterlife. People have no eyes and ears. There's no need. There's no biological bodies. But people mold and shape that because that's what they believe they are. And in doing so, they limit their let's just say, evolutionary journey. And this is, I think, very important. Once you realize through experience what you are, all things open to you.
And I'm sure that you've come in contact with so many different alternate realities or constructs that have been made over there. So it's like if someone passes and believes that they have to cross the River Jordan to get to the pearly gates, then they're going to go do that,
Oh, absolutely, because it's the afterlife is completely thought responsive, and it responds to our thoughts. And whatever you believe, you will end up in. And that's the big double-edged sword. If you believe you're whatever it may be, you're believing in the limits of that, and you're incorporating that. So that's what I mean. There's millions and millions of realities in the afterlife, all of them created by the collective thoughts of the inhabitants. I've witnessed this myself. And it's very limiting because everybody's, they all are locked into that paradigm of that belief system. And that's very restrictive, just like it is in the physical world. How can we ever experience our true spiritual essence when we remain locked into a biological self-identity? We have created the blocks to ourselves. And this is what we have to break free from. And that's why OBEs provide that window of like, oh my God, that moment of revelation when you realize, oh my God, I'm not this biological body. I'm so much more. And that's the beginning of a transformation that people have during profound out-of-body experiences, and also occur during near-death experiences to a great degree.
Except I prefer to do the out-of-body.
Yeah, yeah, me too. And it's true. And everybody's fixated on near-death, and that you don't need to die to have these profound experiences. People have the same thing occurring during deep meditation and trance states. They have these profound experiences where they let's just say they transcend the limits of their body. And this is what is needed. In other words, that's where knowledge comes from. You're no longer a believer, you're a knower. And that's the goal here, is to become a knower.
Well, and once you have transcended the body in an out-of-body experience, I mean, the knowledge that's gained from that, as you were just saying, it really would make death less scary for some people because it's just a continuation. It's like walking through a room from one room to another.
Absolutely. People that have had often not only OBEs but near-death experiences, I don't fear death. Because I know I am not going to die. Consciousness does not die. It just won't happen. Now, the next phase is that we have to become as prepared, because one of the things I write about in my latest book is this idea that death is almost like a launch pad of consciousness if you choose to make it so. Instead of focusing on the negative that unfortunately in our culture we do, it's a grieving period. Death is an opportunity for a transcendental experience if you prepare for it and make it so. But in our culture, that's not the way we've been brought up. we've been taught that, it's, everybody's grieving and there's this, it's a solemn event. I know because I just went through my mother-in-law's died just 8 days ago. And it's even during that event I was thinking, God, it's not a solemn event. It's a transcendental event. It's a launch of consciousness into another realm of life. If you choose to make it so. We create our realities not only in the physical world, but in the afterlife as well. And it's not widely talked about that we also have that impact in the afterlife. In fact, we have more ability to create in the afterlife because it's much more thought responsive. But we have to take control of that. We have to take control of our thoughts and our beliefs.
Book that just came out. I'd love for you to share that with our listeners.
Yes, the new book is called Higher Self Now, How to Accelerate Your Spiritual Evolution is the subtitle. And it's about exactly what I just referred to, about being prepared for this transition of consciousness that we call death, and to make your death and your loved one's death, because it is a transition of consciousness. No one really dies. No one has ever died. No one ever ends. But we have the ability to make our transition into this incredible, really, like I said before, a launch pad of consciousness where we can accelerate our growth.
Well, Dino, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show with us today and to share your knowledge and experience about out-of-body experience and the afterlife. I think it's so important that people definitely get involved in that whole process of learn more about the choices they're going to make in this life and the next. Oh,
absolutely. Knowledge provides freedom, opportunities for freedom.
Thank you for being on the show today.
My pleasure.
We're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with William Buhlman, out-of-body expert. Next coming up is Ben Parr. You don't want to miss the next episode, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We are here with another very special guest, Ben Parr. He is the author of Captivology, The Science of Capturing People's Attention. So Ben's actually been an inspiration of mine. He was editor at Mashable. He's written hundreds and thousands of articles on social media technology and just the go-to guy for inspiration. So welcome to the show, Ben.
Thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you. This book definitely caught my attention. So it's got a lot of great information for people who are looking to really move forward in being able to, further connect with people in a deeper way.
I think so, but I'm kind of biased. I think it's not, part of the book is about how to capture attention, but it's also about understanding your own attention and, you know, why certain things connect with us more deeply than others.
Mm-hmm. Well, and in your book, I know you talk about this 3 stages of attention.
Yeah, so in Captivology, I went through over 300 years of scientific research in attention and memory to understand the fundamental science of why we pay attention to certain people and products. And I interviewed a lot of business leaders in order to understand how people captivate attention in the real world and how you can do that. One of the things they discuss are the 3 stages of attention. And you need to know these things in order to know the 3 stages in order to understand how attention works. So most people think of attention as this on-off switch. You're paying attention or you're not. But really it comes in degrees. And my analogy is a bonfire in the sense that you can't just start a bonfire by throwing logs on. You have to start with stage 1, which is the spark, and then stage 2, which is the kindling and the little sticks that you have to get growing, until stage 3, the big logs are put on. Attention works in a similar way. Stage 1 is immediate attention, is an automatic kind of attention. Stage 2 is short attention, which is when we start focusing on something. It's conscious attention. And then stage 3 is long attention, and that's long-term memory and long-term attention. And the difference between you going out to buy, like Apple advertising to you, and you getting in line because you are such a dedicated fan of Apple or Beyonce or anything like that.
Well, and I think in today's world where people are so detached and, you know, constantly looking at their phones, playing Pokemon Go. I mean, a friend of mine saw somebody the other day that just walked into a tree doing that, not even really being present. You know, I think today's book is really more needed than ever because of the whole lack of attention kind of, you know, that we're in.
Well, think about it this way. We are exposed to more information than any other point in human history, and it grows exponentially. One study at USC found that on average, in 1986, the average human being was exposed to about 44 newspapers worth of information. By 2006, 20 years later, that number had quadrupled to 176 newspapers worth of information. But last year, the average human being was exposed to 7 DVDs worth of information daily. It's an exponential increase, and yet we have the same 24 hours and we have the same brains. And so it's natural that we're going to have some issues managing our attention and understanding how to control it and running into trees.
You know, both literally and figuratively there. So I know that in your book you discuss how we really have 15 seconds to grab somebody's attention.
Yeah. So, in fact, a lot of attention is at an automatic subconscious level. The things that you wear, the body language that you have, the initial presence that you give has a tremendous effect because we have to decide very quickly in our daily lives whether or not you or your idea or your product or your passion is worth our attention because it's such a limited resource in the modern era.
Mm-hmm. In your book, you also discuss how if you come across somebody and they're really upset, you know, the importance of buying a cup of coffee for them.
Oh, that's a fascinating one. So I talk about this thing called automaticity. It's the fact that we automatically pay attention to certain sights and stimuli and react to them at a subconscious level. And the example I talk about there is the fact that if you wanted to close a deal or make someone like you more, or you're trying to build a better relationship, all you need to do is give that person a hot cup of coffee or tea. And it's not because of the act of giving. It's actually because we subconsciously associate interpersonal warmth with the physical sensation of warmth. And multiple studies have shown that just by merely holding a hot object, we're more warm and we're more friendly towards other people. And so just giving somebody a hot cup of coffee will make them like you more.
Well, I'm just amazed at the research that you did to write this book and the information that it contains. I mean, it's just about every page you turn to, there's something, if you're a marketer or if you're somebody who maybe is getting into business or just wanting to connect with people in a different way and understand how it works. I mean, your book was just spot on with all of that.
I tried very hard to make the book applicable to anybody across any industry. And so the scientific research I found, the captivation triggers, which are the triggers that actually capture our attention, are universal constants in human nature. And that's why I chose them. Because it doesn't matter whether what culture you're from or what industry you're in. A good mystery, for example, is going to captivate you more than other types of storytelling, or holding a warm cup of coffee is going to make you like somebody else. Now, these are natural constants, and I tried to make it so that if you're a musician and you're trying to build your fan base, if you're a brand marketer and you're trying to build a presence for your company, you're an entrepreneur trying to build something for yourself or for your company, the book would be applicable to you.
Was that your inspiration for writing the book?
Actually, the inspiration was startups. So I come from the startup world. I invest in startups. I've been a journalist for many years in the startup space. I was an editor for Mashable. And when I left, companies would ask me for help in press, marketing, customer and user acquisition, virality. All these areas kind of fall into one category, attention. And I realized that I was interested in the subject and that I could be a better investor and a better mentor if I understood attention. And I did a lot of research, and I realized that this was just a subject that, while there was so much scientific research done on it, nobody had put it together into something that could be usable by the general public, by anybody. And that's kind of where the genesis of the book came from.
Definitely elevating conversations with this book. Now, in your book, you also discuss about framing triggers and how it's used to capture our attention.
So the framing trigger is the fact that we have this incredible capability to pay attention to things that fall within our frame of reference and to ignore things that fall outside of it. Typically, it's a good thing because if, for example, someone came up to us and told us that all the last 40 presidents and all the world's leaders were actually secretly lizard people, we wouldn't pay attention to them because we don't have time for that. That's not worth our attention. We have limited attention. It's not worth it. But the framing trigger also makes it so that, for example, if someone talks about gun control or the 2016 election, you're going to have a very specific mindset, and it's going to be hard to get you to listen to the other side or otherwise because of framing. Framing is extremely powerful, and we have to be very aware how the frame of reference that we have based on our biology, based on our upbringing, based on our political beliefs, biases us towards different decisions and different ideas and different things that we would that we don't pay attention to that we would otherwise.
Having an open mind is definitely something that would be very much needed in kind of reviewing items that come to us in regards to framing triggers.
It's harder than ever for people, I believe, in the modern era to have an open mind, partly because and social feeds, your Facebook, your Twitter, other things, they automatically filter for things you like, but it kind of reinforces the same ideas, and it changes. Like there was a great thing in the New York Times, and they showed what a conservative and what a liberal newsfeed would look like, and we're not exposed to as many other different ideas, and I think it's really important to expose yourself to as many different ideas, even if you disagree with them or you don't think you would be interested in them in the first place. That's harder than ever, I believe.
Yeah, especially in today's climate, it seems. You know, and, more of an open mind could be better used than ever. Now, I know you also discuss on the flip side there are reward triggers. You know, how do those work, and how do they work to hook us in? So
everybody thinks that dopamine is this drug in the brain that creates pleasure. But that's not quite true. I interviewed Dr. Kent Berridge, who's the leading researcher in this area over at the University of Michigan. And what he figured out based on studies he did with mice is that dopamine, even if you had no dopamine, you'd still feel pleasure. What happens is you lose all the motivation to do anything. We're motivated by by rewards. And dopamine kicks in to make us desire rewards. In fact, if we had no dopamine, most of us would probably starve to death because we wouldn't have the motivation to live or to eat. Now, there are two types of rewards that really matter when it comes to motivating people and thus capturing their attention. There are extrinsic rewards, things like food, money, sex, drugs, very tangible short-term things. And they do capture attention at an automatic visceral level. If I put a pile of money next to us, your eyes are going to naturally gravitate towards it. You're programmed that way. But there's also intrinsic rewards, and those are just as important, if not more important. And these are the internal kinds of long-term rewards, things like self-satisfaction, a desire to master a new subject, having a purpose in life, feeling safe, feeling love. These are important, and you cannot capture all three stages of attention without using both types of rewards.
We're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Ben Parr. You want to tune in for the second segment? We'll be right back.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 123 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com. Ben Wexler is a gifted leadership development and strategy consultant for professionals who want to transform their organizations and careers. Through a uniquely personalized set of processes, participants discover their unique knowledge, how to leverage that knowledge and experience, and then put it all together with a global strategy. You're more valuable, your organization is more valuable, and the change is viral. Contact Ben at 630-881-1074. 630-881-1074.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We are here with our very special guest, Ben Parr. He's the author of the best-selling book, Captivology, The Science of Capturing People's Attention. So, Ben, we left at our break and we were talking in regards to framing triggers and reward triggers. So we have to have a framing trigger in order for the reward trigger to work? Is that the way it works?
Well, you need intrinsic and extrinsic rewards. So there are 7 triggers in the book I talk about. And you don't need to use all 7 every single time. They're ordered based on, the stage of attention. And so the hot coffee example I talked about earlier is an example of automaticity, which is a trigger that captures immediate unconscious attention. While something like a intrinsic reward like self-satisfaction or purpose or mastery is more suited to capturing long-term attention. Once you know the triggers, you can pick which trigger to use or which triggers in combination to use to capture the attention of your audience, whether it's the first time you've talked to them or you're trying to make them into a loyal fan or a loyal customer or a loyal friend.
That's great information, and it really boils down how people pay attention and the different techniques, and it's not really I hate to even use the word techniques, but different approaches to really capturing that attention and pulling them in. That's absolutely fascinating.
So what I like to say is that people think of courting attention as this bad thing, but I think in the modern era, if you have a really worthy cause, an idea, whether it's a nonprofit or a startup idea, or just you want people to notice something you think is important, a cause. It's good to court attention for those things, and you should actively do that. People can tell when you're passionate positively about something.
Definitely. It's easy to tell that you're passionate about this subject. So I know that you also discussed how basically a lot of times people will turn off their brain if they're listening to experts. Is that really a true thing?
Oh, it's very true. It's really fascinating. There's a scientific term for this. It's called directed deference. And basically, the example I love to use is there was a study done at Emory University, and what they did was they had students make decisions with money, economic decisions. When you do those kinds of economic money decisions, like how to spend it, the critical thinking decision centers of the brain light up. But in this study, in half the cases, they would have an economics professor, an expert, give them advice, always very conservative money advice. And what they found was when they were listening to the experts, the fMRI scans, the brain scans, found that the decision-making centers were dormant. They weren't lighting up. It was as if they offloaded the processing power of their brains to the expert. And even when the professor gave really bad advice, super conservative advice, when clearly you should be making another decision, a lot of these people still took the advice of the professor because they weren't thinking critically. They weren't processing ideas. We really pay deference to experts.
Oh, we really got to pay attention to the experts that we pay attention to. Make sure that they're really not just perceived experts, but really someone that has great information for us that can move us forward. Oh my goodness! I mean, there's just so much in here. I'm still kind of going back through it. So I know that you talked in your book about mystery triggers as well, and we touched on that just a little bit at the beginning of the show. You discussed mystery, but how does that play a role? And this is actually, I thought, a fascinating one in online dating.
So there are two scientific reasons that we pay attention to mysteries. One is called the Zeigarnik effect. Basically, we have a stronger memory for incomplete tasks and incomplete thoughts. If you have a task that's incomplete, it'll keep looping in your head. But the bigger thing for the dating side is something called uncertainty reduction theory. And basically it states that in our initial interactions with people, we are trying to gather as much information as possible because we are uncomfortable with uncertainty. And there's so much uncertainty, for example, in initial online dating. And if you think about what you might message back and forth on an OkCupid or a Tinder, or even when you're on a first date, you're going to ask questions like, where are you from? Do you have family? Small talk kinds of questions. And the reason is because of uncertainty reduction theory. We're trying to reduce the uncertainty so that we can make a determination of, is this person interesting? Do I want to date this person, etc. But when there is a mystery still open, we continually pay attention. If a person teases, some mystery, it can be a mysterious date. It can be something. We're very curious. We want to know more, but we also want to resolve the uncertainty. So we pay attention to mysteries for multiple reasons, and dating is one of the biggest mysteries of them all.
I think a lot of people would agree with you on that one. So, it's interesting how science really works especially in things like dating and online dating, just the science of that, and really how it's, I'm sure the companies that like Tinder and Match and eHarmony, they all understand how, capturing people's attention works, because that's why their platforms are doing so well.
Two things. One, what's funny? Match, Tinder, and eHarmony are all owned by the same company.
Oh.
They're all owned by a thing called the Match Group, which is owned by another company. It's fun. There's a big super dating company now. The other thing I wanted to mention is that a lot of the dating stuff also happens initially. I interviewed, and I didn't even include some of this in the book because I didn't have enough room. I interviewed Dr. Eli Finkel at Northwestern University, who's a leading researcher in attraction. And essentially, his research shows that we like to say things like, when we're meeting people, we're looking for intelligent people to date. We're looking for people who make us laugh. But really, a lot of our initial decisions on who we're going to go on dates with really comes down to simple attraction metrics and what we're attracted to. And it's really a powerful thing, at least in the initial onset. Multiple studies show that if you just wear the color red, the opposite gender will pay more attention to you. And there was one study where they found that women who wore the color red versus any other color were more likely to be picked up on the side of the road. by both men and women because of our unconscious association with red. If you put a thick red border around a person's face, the opposite gender is going to rate you as more attractive than they would otherwise. So many crazy things.
Well, now you're going to have everyone on all those platforms putting red borders around their faces.
I'm surprised more don't do it.
Now, I'm sure that these great companies have had you out to talk with them in regards to just how how to better leverage being able to capture people's attention. If not, they should.
I mean, I agree with you on that one. I've done a lot of talks. I've been traveling a lot. I just did a speech in D.C. to political event organizers on the science of attention. It's applicable across industries. There's so many fascinating things when you really dig into the data and you really think about just little things like how people react to logos, and bigger things like how do you build long-term loyalty. There's so many fascinating things that a lot of companies could be doing and changing right now that they're not doing, and it's crazy to me they're not.
Well, obviously they need to hire you to come in and chat with them about that, because you are you're the expert. Not that we're going to turn off our brains and just listen to you, but you really have great information on how to move businesses, people, and brands forward.
You're too kind. You should just tell that. You're telling that to everybody. You're too kind.
Hey, I know a good thing when I see it. I've been reading a lot of books and talking with a lot of people, and I've got to say, yours wowed me. I picked up, and I'm just, even still, I keep going through it. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is great information. I can't believe people aren't doing this, and it's so. It really does go across all different industries. There's not one industry that this won't help. So.
Yeah, I like I said, I did it so that it's universal. It doesn't matter whether you're a school teacher or you're a lawyer or you're a big brand. I believe, and I wrote Captivology to be useful for everybody in all walks of life.
Well, you did a fabulous job. I personally want to thank you. And any last thoughts you want to leave our listeners with?
The last thing I guess I would say is something I learned from Susan Cain. And so I interviewed Susan Cain, who's the author of Quiet, which is also a fantastic book. Mm-hmm. And so again, with attention, people like to sometimes think about it as me, bring attention to myself. When I think really the masters of attention don't put attention on themselves. They really put attention on their causes, on their ideas, on their products. You don't see the Mark Zuckerbergs and the J.J. Abrams of the world just saying, look at me. They're trying to say, look at what I've created, look at what my team has done, look at the product, look at the cause. And I think we can see that, and that's the strongest form of it. That's the strongest way to use attention. And it's always a good thing to court attention for your cause and your product and idea. It's especially, the book's especially useful for those who are introverts, because you're not trying, as Susan Cain explained to me, you're not trying to bring attention to yourself. You're trying to bring attention to somebody else. The book will help you understand how attention works and how to direct it and how to control it in some way.
Without a doubt. And that is actually great advice. There's lots of people that I come in contact with that have great products, services, brands, you name it. And they do cringe when it comes to, have to draw attention to me, but, shifting focus and drawing attention instead to their product, brand, or company, much better. And definitely pick up the book, Captivology, and be part of your community. So thank you again for taking time to be on the show with us today, Ben.
Thank you for having me.
Definitely. For all of our listeners out there, you can reach Ben at benparr.com.
I'd like to thank you for tuning in with us today. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.